Everyone says the best way to handle the silent treatment is to give them space and just wait it out. So you tried that. But somehow waiting it out just made everything worse because narcissistic silence isn't about needing time to cool down or process emotions. It's about control. And the longer you wait for them to come around, the more power you're actually handing over. So now you're stuck in this pattern where their mood determines your entire emotional state, and you're constantly trying to earn back their attention and approval. But there are 6 specific tactics narcissists use when they weaponize silence, and once you understand what's happening, you really can stop playing their game entirely. My name is Christina, and on this channel, we talk about toxic relationships and how to recognize the patterns that keep you stuck. So there are definitely people who need a little space in order to process things, especially when they're upset. And that is not what narcissistic silence is about, even though that is what they'll tell you it's about. So when a narcissist goes silent, it's really in an effort to dysregulate you. And the goal, it's not to fix any sort of problem. It's to make you so uncomfortable that you will do whatever it takes to get their attention back. And that is exactly what makes it so effective and why they do it so often. So the first tactic is what I call the punishment silence. And this is when they withhold communication as retaliation for some kind of perceived slight or boundary setting, which is a perceived slight to them. So let's just say you express a legitimate concern about something they did. Maybe they were dismissive during a conversation with your friends, and you brought it up later when you were alone, which you felt like was the appropriate time. Instead of discussing it or even defending themselves, they just shut down completely. So they might give you one-word answers or just ignore you altogether. And what happens is you start to feel guilty for even bringing up the concern in the first place. Now, this is incredibly manipulative because what they're doing is they're teaching you that having boundaries equals losing connection. So your brain starts to make this association that if you speak up about something that bothers you, you're going to be punished with emotional withdrawal. And that's exactly what they want. They want you to stop advocating for yourself because the cost just is going to feel too high. So instead of working through the issue you brought up, you end up apologizing for bringing it up at all. And that's how they avoid accountability while training you to never challenge them again. But they're not just avoiding the conversation. They're actively conditioning you to prioritize their comfort over your needs. Because now every time you have a concern, you're going to think twice about whether it's worth the silent treatment that's going to follow. And that's how they slowly erode your ability to maintain healthy boundaries in the relationship. So the second tactic is the hoovering silence. And this one is a strategic withdrawal that creates panic and makes you chase them for reassurance. So this typically happens after they've been love bombing you and everything's been going really well. So you're feeling secure in the relationship. And then suddenly they become distant. So they stop initiating conversations and they're not as responsive to your texts. And when you're together, they seem distracted or disinterested. Now, what happens in your mind is you immediately start wondering what you did wrong because the shift feels so sudden and dramatic that you assume you must have done something to cause it. So you start analyzing every interaction you've had recently, trying to figure out where you went wrong. And then you start working even harder to get their attention back. So you might text them more or suggest activities you know they like, or just generally try to be more accommodating and pleasant. And again, exactly what they want. Because what the hoovering silence does is it activates your attachment system. So your brain goes into panic mode because the person you are attached to is suddenly unavailable. And your nervous system interprets that as a threat to your survival. So you'll do whatever it takes to restore that connection, even if it means sacrificing your own needs or dignity in the process. But this withdrawal isn't about anything you did. It's about maintaining control. Because when you're chasing them for reassurance, they have all the power in the relationship. So they get to decide when they give you attention and when to withdraw it. And the more you chase, the more valuable their attention becomes to you. And to be clear, yes, of course, everyone gets to decide when they give someone attention and when they don't. But the difference here is that it's very strategic when you're dealing with a narcissist. And it's absolutely designed to keep you on the hook. So the third tactic is the superiority silence. And this is when they use silence to communicate that you're not worth their words or energy. So this is different from the other types because it's not about getting you to chase them or training you to avoid certain topics. It's about reinforcing their grandiose self-image while making you feel absolutely worthless. So let's just say you're going through something difficult. So maybe you lost your job or you're dealing with a family crisis. So you reach out to them for support, and instead of offering comfort or even acknowledging what you're going through, they respond with complete indifference. So they might physically be in the same room as you, but they act like you're invisible. They don't make eye contact. They don't respond to your attempts at conversation, and they don't offer any emotional support whatsoever, even though you're clearly in need of it. So what this communicates is that your problems are beneath their concern. They're too important and too superior to be bothered with your emotional needs. And this is incredibly damaging to you because it happens during moments when you're already vulnerable. So you're dealing with whatever crisis or challenge you're facing, but you're also dealing with the additional pain of being completely dismissed by someone who's supposed to care about you. And this reinforces the narcissistic hierarchy, where they're at the top and you're somehow, somewhere far below. Because in their mind, truly superior people don't have to explain themselves to inferior people. What's that expression? Lions don't involve themselves with the opinions of sheep. They very much see themselves as the lion and you are the sheep. So their silence isn't about being hurt or needing space. It's about putting you in your place and reminding you that you don't deserve their time or attention. So the fourth tactic is the guilt trip silence. And this is a dramatic withdrawal that makes you feel responsible for their emotional state. Now, this one is particularly twisted because it happens when you try to hold them accountable for something they did. And so let's just say you confronted them about a lie they told or a promise they broke. Instead of owning up to their behavior or even trying to defend themselves, they completely shut down. But it's not just regular silence we're talking about here. This is performative. So they might sigh heavily or look defeated or even start to tear up. And they act like you've completely devastated them by bringing up their behavior. And what happens is you start to feel like the one who did something wrong. Because here they are, looking so hurt and vulnerable, and you're the one who made them feel that way by confronting them about their own actions. Now, what this does is it completely reverses the victim and perpetrator roles. It's going back to that old Darvo routine. So you came to them with a legitimate concern about their behavior, but somehow you end up being the one who feels guilty. And you might end up comforting them instead of getting the accountability that you were looking for. And again, exactly what they want. Because now instead of dealing with the consequences of their actions, they've made you responsible for managing their emotions. And this works so well because it plays on your empathy. You see them looking sad or hurt, and your natural instinct is to make them feel better. So you might apologize for bringing it up, or you might try to comfort them, or maybe just drop the issue altogether because you don't want to make them feel worse. But what you're actually doing is reinforcing the idea that their feelings matter more than your need for accountability. So the fifth tactic is information control silence. And this is when they withhold crucial information or responses to keep you in emotional limbo. So this isn't about punishing you or making you chase them. It's about maintaining power through uncertainty. Because when you don't have information you actually need, you can't make informed decisions about your own life. So let's just say you're trying to make plans for the weekend and you ask them what they want to do. Instead of giving you a straight answer, they just don't respond. Or maybe you're in a relationship and you ask them where things are going, and they give you vague non answers, or they just ignore the question completely. So they might say something like, "We'll see," or "I don't know," or they might just change the subject entirely. And this keeps you in a constant state of anxiety and uncertainty because you can't plan your life when you don't know where you stand with them. You can't make decisions about your time, your energy, or your emotional investment because they won't give you the information you need. And that is exactly the point. Because when you're operating from a place of uncertainty, you're more likely to accommodate them and less likely to make demands or set boundaries. And the problem with this is that it prevents you from taking control of your own life. So you're constantly waiting for them to give you direction or clarity. And in the meantime, your life is on hold. So you might turn down other opportunities or avoid making commitments because you're waiting to see what they want to do. And that's how they maintain control over your choices without ever having to explicitly tell you what to do. So the sixth tactic is triangulation silence. And this is when they're silent with you while actively communicating with other people, creating jealousy and competition for their attention. So they might ignore your texts for hours or days, but then you see them posting on social media, or you find out that they were talking to mutual friends during that same time period. And this does a really good job of communicating that you're not worth their time or attention, but other people are. And this creates a really specific kind of pain because it's not just about being ignored, it's about being specifically excluded while watching them engage with everyone else. So you know they're not actually busy or unavailable. They're just choosing not to communicate with you. And this makes you, again, compete for their attention. So you start wondering what those other people have that you don't. Or you might try to figure out what you did wrong to make them choose to talk to everyone else over you. And you might start changing your behavior to try to win back their attention and get back into their inner circle. But here's what's really happening. They're using other people as weapons against you. They're trying to show you that their attention is a very limited resource, and right now, you don't deserve it. And this can be so isolating because it not only cuts you off from them, but it also makes you suspicious of the other people they're talking to. So you start to see those people as competition instead of potential support systems. And what ties all of these tactics together is that they all work by making you responsible for managing their emotions and the relationship dynamic. So whether it's punishment silence that trains you not to have boundaries or the hoovering silence that makes you chase their attention, it's not about them needing space or time to process. It's about transferring the emotional labor of the relationship onto you. Because when they go silent, you become responsible for figuring out what's wrong, for making them feel better, or for earning back their attention. But it's really important to remember that these tactics only work if you respond the way they expect you to. So the real work here is recognizing which tactic they use most and practicing non-engagement. And that doesn't mean you have to be cold or hostile. It just means you stop making their silence your emergency and you stop trying to earn back their attention or apologizing for things you didn't do wrong. And if you want to learn specific strategies for how to disengage from these manipulation tactics, I have a video on the gray rock method that walks you through exactly how to protect yourself without escalating the situation. So click here to watch that one. And if you found this video helpful, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button, and I'll see you next time.